Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. You got DanK and we got friend Mike, our Washington expert.
Expert?
Dual citizenship, Oregon and Washington.
And I don't work for Rand Corporation.
No, but we have an interesting story that they're fixing the marijuana law.
Yeah, they like that. They fixed it so now cops can tell the difference between what you grow for fiber, seed, fuel, and whatnot is what you grow for medicine or recreational use. And so it's what, 0.03% THC Delta 9. So maybe now they can start being smart about the rest of the bill, which is kind of languishing still these days up there. Like I said last week, it's going to be at least until May of 2014 before you can have your exempted tax recreational weed.
So yeah, so we're not there yet.
Well,
it's symbolic, but
it's symbolic, and you know the results. The election really just kind of got us through the door. Now we have to walk through it. The people that are helping some of the states, like in Washington, to draw up regulations are, for one thing, they're doing something that's never been attempted, trying to change something that's been prohibitive for 70 years at least to now being a taxable commodity that responsible adults can use, and they really haven't said that responsible adults can use this without being considered in need of, you know, drug treatment. So we're still breaking down barriers, but like I say, we got to walk through the door smartly and make sure that you know, we hold our representatives into account when dealing with this. Not like having somebody dig up, you know, the Reader's Digest article saying, well, marijuana is evil, it's bad, it makes you stupid.
right.
You know, we know that isn't true.
Yeah, it says here the recreational marijuana law currently defines marijuana only by its content of the intoxicating compound Delta 9 THC. Scientists with the state crime lab say that often, even potent marijuana may have less than 0.3% of Delta 9. It's only when heated or burned that THC acid turns into Delta 9 THC. And they argue that marijuana should be defined by the combined amounts of both compounds. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happens, how it all turns out. And I also want to talk about the Oregon Cannabis Connection newspaper. They're out. The new issue is out. Page 17, we have the Emerald Empire Hemp Fest ad. And Mike and I have been talking about how we like to talk on the show about some of the experiences, because Mike and I are both ex-professional truck drivers. And I like to say I'm an ex-independent truck driver, and a friend of mine said, yeah, you're the most independent ex-truck driver I've ever met.
They don't,
But anyway, one of the things we're talking about when you're driving and being safe, because it's just like hunting season, and they're out there looking for you, you know. And when you hear about people getting pulled over and pot found in their car, you know, if you'll read the article, you'll end up almost always they'll say you're pulled over for a traffic infraction.
Right. You don't want to give a policeman reason to pull you over, and you know, check your vehicle's condition, your lights are working, observe speed laws, prima facie speed laws, which means that if everybody else is speeding by a few miles an hour, someone jump in there. You don't want to be an impediment to the flow of traffic, because that can get you pulled over too. So you got to be smart and realize that, you know, Interstate 5 in the eyes of the law is one of the most dubious corridors of traffic in the country as far as the drug trade goes. But they say that about every stretch of interstate that Nixon built for us back in the day.
Yep.
So,
oh yeah.
they're out there trying to profile people. So,
and always use baking bags, the plastic bags you can buy in
basing bags, right?
Basing bags, very inexpensive and very effective. When an officer walks up to your window and says, "I smell pot," we had an attorney tell us that that's one of the hardest things that you can fight against, because who can prove that he didn't smell it? So it's something you can't prove a negative. So it's be safe and have the bag. Now, I got pulled over one time, and exactly that's what happened. The officer said, "I smell marijuana. Do you have a card?" Well, I had my pot. I just came from the show. I had a pot T-shirt on and a button, and I figured, yeah, right, you smelled it right. Well, I do have a card, and I showed him, and everything was fine. Next day, I got to get into the car to get something, and whoo! I guess he probably did smell something, because I was careless and didn't use the basting bags. Very important. So be safe, and don't make quick moves. If you see a policeman behind you, don't start nervously looking in the mirror. Don't start moving your body. Keep your upper body absolutely completely still. If you're going to do something, keep it from elbows below. If you're going to move something, stash it. But because you are being watched, and it's a game and a war at the same time. So. And
you also got to be smart. You know, don't drive stoned.
And don't panic. It's like any other situation. I've thought back and things have happened in cop situations and scared the hell out of me, but it was all over. And then I thought about it, and I thought back, and I thought, I didn't panic. That's what saved me. I kept my head and I knew what to do, and I did it, and it worked. You know. So, as our attorney friend Brian Michael says, he says, say yes to no to a DRE and yes to P. If you're pulled over by an officer and they bring in a drug recognition expert, at some point they will ask you, do you submit to an evaluation? And you may say no without any
consequence. Right.
Exactly. And so stick with it, because they'll get that DRE guy in there, and then he'll say, oh, you,
he'll just say automatically you're impaired.
Yeah, and they'll send you off to a blood test.
Yeah,
and at that point, you can't say no at that point, but not agreeing to it earlier, it gives the attorney something to fight with.
Right, right. Because those guys are trying to protect their jobs as well. So if you can't justify a drug recognition officer to be out there at extra expense to taxpayers, so know your rights, exercise your rights, and we still live in America. And unless we exercise our rights, they're going to go by the wayside. So don't fear the police.
I like to say your rights are like a muscle. You got to use them you got to use them, or you're going to lose them. So.
Yeah, and they've really atrophied in the last 10 years, especially in light of the war on terror that is in its second decade now.
If they want to search your stuff, always say no. Always say no. Never consent to a search, because again, it gives the lawyer something to work with. So anyway, just to be some caution tips there, and we also have the Willamette Valley Normal Flyer, and that's from our friend up in Perry up in Salem,
puts that
out, yeah. And interesting stories. And do you have the other issue about the Hempfest? No. The other issue about the front page of the Hempfest being 10 years old. So, yeah, anyway, it's you can also read that online at the WillametteValleyNormal.org website. A lot of good information there. We had a great meeting. Big thanks to the brighter side, Joseph and
Chelsea,
thank you. Let us use their classroom for the meeting, for the normal meeting, and also be using it for the Hempfest meeting on May 4th, too. So our Hempfest meeting is at 4:20, which is right after the marijuana march.
Okay.
So,
which is this weekend?
Yes, that's weekend, which is May 4th, and we're all going to meet at the Freedom Plaza, which is the corner of 8th and Oak, at the Freedom Plaza. We're going to meet there and take off. It's noon sharp. At noon, we're going to take off at noon. We're going to be walking around Saturday Market, around downtown. Reverend Will is going to be in the old courthouse, federal courthouse at 7th and Pearl, and he'll be going around the courthouse 7 times around the courthouse, so you can also join in that festivity. And then we'll all come back together at 12:30 at the old federal building at 7th and Pearl. Mm-hmm. We'll have a PA system, canopies, an information booths, and speakers. And of course, I don't have the list of speakers with me, which I should. But anyway, we've got some good ones.
And this is a good opportunity for everybody in Lane County, Eugene, to show their support for this, show your representatives that we are paying attention, that we do back up a rational approach to drug policy. Even the people who've been wanting to throw us in jail for the last 30 years, 40 years, my lifetime, are finally starting to realize that, hey, this is not doing the required deeds. They've realized that people are very keen on the fact that we don't have unlimited amounts of money. This costs $25 billion a year, and that's just what the feds throw at it. So luckily, we have the opportunity. We do live in a free country, but we're going to have to make sure that they're reminded of how we feel about this. So it doesn't matter that we had an election last November. These guys hope that people have a 2-week memory and they forget. And can get so busy, it's hard to make a living, yada, yada, yada. But this Saturday, come out in the streets. We get enough people out there, people are going to notice us. But right now they're able to somewhat ignore it.
We need bodies on the street.
Yes.
And don't be concerned about being the federal courthouse, because we have an excellent reputation and their security likes us, so we're cool. I just want a quick note to just say no flyer information for the medical marijuana patients. You can pick one of these up at the greener side at 1600 Oak. Our friends at the greener side, 1600 Oak. You can pick up one. You just say no flyer, and you can also pick up the current issue of the Oregon Cannabis Connection. Most of the clinics in town, Southern Oregon Alternative, Northwest Alternative, have the paper. So we're going to wrap it up, and we'll hope to see you there Saturday.
My name is Dr. William Courtney. I'm involved in the raw use of cannabis as a dietary essential. In that capacity, you can use 60 times more than you can tolerate if heated, and in that capacity is a very potent anti-inflammatory that will find a very broad population of interest in this country.
I'm Donald Abrams, and I'm Chief of Hematology Oncology at San Francisco General Hospital and a Professor of Medicine at the University of California, San Francisco. I do research in medical cannabis applications. I mean, if cannabis were discovered in an Amazon rainforest today, people would be clamoring to make as much use of as they could of all of the potential benefits of the plant. I think, unfortunately, it carries with it, you know, a long, maybe not so long history of being a persecuted plant.
5 years ago, I wouldn't prescribe cannabis for a fellow I went to medical school with because I was such a skeptic. And now it's real clear to me that cannabis is a vegetable. It's not psychoactive until humans alter it chemically. No other animal alters it. So the whole psychoactive thing is a human aspect of the plant that has nothing to do with the 34 million years of evolution that the plant has. It's captured these molecules that help our body's regulatory system be more effective. And its bottom line is it's a dietary essential that helps all 210 cell types function more effectively. And so I never even refer to it as medicine anymore. Strictly as a dietary essential. It only becomes medicine once you have a breakdown and a condition has become very serious and the system, your body is being overwhelmed. Then cannabis can be manipulated, i.e. heated, concentrated, to become a medicine. But in its best form, it's a preventative. And preventing diabetes is a lot better than trying to treat it. Preventing cancer is a lot better than trying to treat it.
I think cannabis is a medicine that is anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and probably has some direct activity against cancerous cells. So.
The federal patent is phenomenal. The Department of Health and Human Services since 2003 has had intellectual property on CBD, and CBD is, is a molecule that's coming out of the shadows from THC. It doesn't produce that psychoactive. The majority of my patients don't want to get high at 8 o'clock in the morning and be high all day long. But a lot of them do have arthritis, car accidents, autoimmune disorders, rheumatoid, and they start out their day in pain, and they're in pain most of the day long. And so they're looking for relief but clarity, and that's what these eating the plant raw. And that's, you not only need CBD. CBD is a non-psychoactive, whether it's CBD acid, which is how it's found in the raw plant, or CBD, which is what happens after you cook it or heat it or steep it or turn it into tea or something. But THC acid is the real tricky molecule in the raw plant, totally non-psychoactive, phenomenally beneficial as a molecule. Once it's heated, it turns into THC, and then the tolerable dose drops from hundreds of milligrams a day to 10. And with 10 milligrams, you stimulate the CB1 receptor, you get that psychoactive effect, either dysphoria or euphoria. but you walk away from 99% of the benefits of this plant, which are bone remodeling, intestinal function, neural function, inflammation control, cancer, precancerous detection. This plant can do phenomenal things, but not if you're taking 10 milligrams rather than the 600 milligrams that the FDA is currently approving as an investigative new drug.
My name is Kristen Piskuski, and I went from being bedridden and on over 40 medications a day to control my health problems to being a mother, to being healthy, happy, and vital, thanks to using green leaf that I juice on a daily basis. Yeah, I was diagnosed with lupus and rheumatoid arthritis when I was 16, and then interstitial cystitis, painful bladder condition, endometriosis, cervical cancer. I was told I was sterile and would never have children, and hypothyroidism, chronic infections. I've had 16 surgical procedures, and I'm resistant to most antibiotics and have chronic infections, and I can't take a lot of Western medicine drugs because of the allergies that I have. I also have asthma. I'm allergic to most environmental factors and different skin rashes, and I have a broken back in 3 places.
Man. So how did you discover this new way of juicing?
I discovered cannabis was helpful for the conditions because when I would smoke cannabis for pain, I had fewer infections. So I started to look into whether cannabis was doing more than just masking the pain. And I moved to California to be able to use cannabis legally, but I still didn't have the type of healing that I anticipated with smoked and heated cannabis. So after talking to several...
We're back, just like a bad debt. I got Reverend Will here to help me out. We got my DanK on this side, and we were going to talk about... Yeah, we got some interesting bills in the legislature. This is very unique. We actually have some pro-cannabis bills. Instead of having to fight off the blankety blanks, we actually have some things that are going through that could be good for us. So we're encouraging people to support them. Example is SB 40. It reduces to a Class C felony, reduces unlawful manufacture of marijuana to a Class B felony. So we can all agree there shouldn't be any kind of crime, but at least it's less, so it's going in the right direction. SB 82 removes, this is important, removes 6 months driver's license suspension for less than an ounce. This was snuck in by our another blankety blank by the name of Mannix. Was snuck in on a completely unrelated bill like they do, and so it went through unnoticed, and it made a mandatory 6 month driver's suspension for having possession of less than an ounce. And this was even worse, even more insidious than a DUI suspension, because you can get a work release with that suspension. This one, you couldn't get it. So
you also you have to give up your driver's license when they take this away, and then if you want any kind of ID, you have to pay them for the Oregon ID.
Yeah.
Then you have to come back and get your license again.
And then pay them again.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. And the two really most exciting, I think, not counting the PTSD bill, but HB 3436 directs Oregon Health Authority to establish a registration system for medical marijuana facilities for transferring usable marijuana from registry identification card holders, designated primary givers of in other words, dispensaries. So it would permit dispensaries, and that one is actually getting some traction. We don't know if it's going to pass or not. It's still up in the air, but it is being considered, and just the fact that it's introduced in the House is a story in itself.
Now see, what goes along with that is this income tax fee that they're trying to put off on people, saying they need it to keep
No,
the
that's
jail.
city. You're talking about city.
That's the city.
Okay, this is state. You're talking about
that's the
city
state.
now.
Okay.
It's all right, but I just to make sure people don't misunderstand it. We're talking about two different things here.
Well, in the city, it's a matter of
Yeah.
you have to have the dispensaries in order for the city to support us in being able to legalize it so that they can then tax it. Okay, so putting the cart, the horse before the cart
Yeah.
is doing this, is getting this passed. Then the people who are concerned about not wanting to pay taxes in the city would be able to have us give them taxable income from the dispensaries that they can use in its place to support the schools and the jails. So that's why that one's so important. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
Yeah, and then we have HB 3371 relating to the control, regulation, and taxation of cannabis. In other words, this is a legalization initiative, not complete legalization, but anyway, it permits adults 21 above to consume. So again, and if these don't make it, especially this legalization initiative, if it doesn't make it, there's a very good chance that there will be at least one, maybe two initiatives coming down the pike, and we'll do it ourselves. Because the legislature has a history of not getting it right. They tried to recriminalize possession of less than an ounce, and we've filed a referendum and beat it. That was the same year we got the medical in. So that was a big year when we got the medical in and beat back the recriminalization. So the legislature knows that we will do that, and they know that and they also have got to know there's a good chance that we can make it, because we almost made it last year with 47%. That's extremely close, considering the fact we didn't have any support nationally. We didn't have any money for the campaign, and we got 47%. So anyway, that's coming up. And then the SB, what is it, 281, the PTSD initiative. If you notice the sign I made up in the back of me here, 1620 for veterans. For those of you that don't understand the military time, that's 420. That's military time. That's 420 in the afternoon. So 420 for the veterans. And yes, we definitely, there's people other than veterans that need medical marijuana for PTSD, of course. But veterans is a big group and that really need it. So we support them in that.
Well, you would think that the people who would like this most would be like the women, who are suffering at the hands of abuse all the time, which is where PTSD, one of the places it comes from, is being abused. For me, when I was in the military, I got beat up for not firing expert on the rifle range because the guy that was my superior wanted me to be his guide in that, and so he was disappointed in me. I'd never fired a rifle before, and I only fired marksman instead of expert. So I ended up getting beat up in the locker room by this guy. Now, to me, that was such an abuse of power from the very beginning, because I'm supposed to trust this man with my life, and he's sitting there confident attitude because never having fired a rifle before, I didn't do as well as he wanted. And for me, I still suffer from that because I have such a hard time with this authority figures, because they do abusive things like this. So I don't know. It's really a sad state of affairs for me, because I keep talking about us being discriminated against. I keep talking about us having war declared on us, and how it would sure be nice if we could have the same privileges that any other war patriot has, which is Geneva Convention privileges. But it just falls on deaf ears, because that's how people in a position of power deal with having to talk to us about pot. They don't. Okay, it's like the medical things that we talk about. They say that they're not happening. When you have somebody in your family who is on dialysis for 25 years and who's still alive while all these other people are dying, you would want people to understand the benefit. But the doctors won't talk to you, and my friend was basically sent to Salem instead of being able to do dialysis here because people didn't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah, when people speak of favorably of their experiences with medical, then the people that are opponents of it come back and say, well, it's just anecdotal. And to me, anecdotal is just another way of saying it could be all in your head. And the patients that I've had, I challenge them to tell a patient that it's all in their head.
anecdotalists coming to the window of your car and saying they can smell pot, whether they can or not.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but they do it, and then all these things of them telling us how, oh, this guy that did this bad thing the other day, oh, he was in jail for 1 day and then he was released and stuff, and it's because of jail overcrowding. And you go, yeah, okay, you know, there's a violent offender right there, and you just let him out. I mean, the guy supposedly threw a Molotov cocktail in an apartment or something, and the guy's out in 1 day. And you're blaming that on who? I think it's the sheriff's department and the people who are in charge of releasing people. You know, because I know for me, I had to go in when I was in jail and talk to, what do they call them? There's some kind of judge where they listen to you, say who you are and what you're doing, and they look at your record and stuff, and then they say whether or not you can be released. You know, like the jail's overcrowded. And you mean these people can't figure it out. If you're throwing a Molotov cocktail into a place, you're much more threatening than somebody who's smoking pot.
Look at Danbo, you know, his last time he went through court, the county court, or state court, there was a guy in front of him. Okay, he got 36 months for growing 100 plants and something like that. And there was a guy before him that went through that was in there for assault with a baseball bat, and he got 42 months, and Danbo got 36. And Danbo had no violence, you know. So.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me when I have police officers who go to court and lie and are very blatant about it because they can get away with it, and then they laugh at you because you're going to jail and you're going, at least I told the truth. Yeah. Understand that, you know, to me that's much more important as to whether or not I go to jail. I'll deal with it, I dealt with it. You know, but the thing is, Officer Kearns, Police Chief Kearns, you liar. I am one of the few people that can really say that you're such a liar. Every time your mouth moves, you're lying. Makes me sick that you're my police chief. So anyway, to get back on to things, I was going to say that, you know, the baking bags is a great idea as far as taking care of the smell of pot, but it's really too bad that we just don't have the freedom to enjoy the smell of it, because we enjoy it. I mean, it's a great smell. We're always talking about wanting to have more.
Well, our friends up Marcola produce a scent that smells like that.
Smell? Yeah. Nice.
So, okay, we're going to wrap this up and come back next week. We'll be here again.